Hi everyone, you're welcome back to my channel. Welcome to the sewing version of this tutorial. If you've not seen the pattern drafting, the link will be in the comment section. So I've gone ahead to use my pattern paper to cut out my fabric and the lining, and I also ironed stay to it. So this is the front. When cutting, your center front should be on fold. I have two pieces. One piece is going to serve as the main fabric and the other one is going to serve as my lining piece, and I ironed stay to the both of them. So this is my yoke for the front. I went ahead to cut out 4 pieces. I'll be using the fabric also as the lining, and these are my front my back piece. I have the yoke and the main bodice. For this yoke also, I went ahead to cut out 4 pieces because I want to use this fabric as the lining. And for the main bodice, I went ahead to also cut out 4 pieces. I ironed my stay to the 4, so 2 is going to serve as the main piece and the other 2 will serve as my lining piece. So I'm going to go ahead and cover my cup up. So if you see the thumbnail, the one we are following, they gathered the fabric on the cup, but since I'm using an Ankara fabric, I want to pleat on my cup. The length of this fabric is 16.5 inches and the wideness is 11 inches. So make sure that the fabric you are going to cut is wide enough to cover the cup. So you can do whatever you want to do with the cup. You can just cover it up normally, you can gather on it, you can pleat on it, but I want to pleat on mine because this is an Ankara fabric and I want it to stay flat. So just look at what I am doing. I am just doing the normal pleat. So I'm going to pleat like this. I'll use my pin to hold it down on the cup, and then I'll hold the other side down. So just look at what I'm doing. If you like, you can just go ahead and stitch a gathered stitch, and then you can just gather it and place it on the cup, and then you can go ahead and sew around the cup. But this is what I choose to do with mine. So just look at what I am doing. So guys, I'm done pleating and I repeated the same thing for the other cup. So this is what they look like I said, if you like, you can gather so that yours will look like the one on the thumbnail. I'm going to go ahead and sew all the way around this cup. So I'm sewing the space that is left on the cup for me to sew, not the main cup. So I've done that. What I'm going to do is to cut out the excess fabric that I have on the cup. The next thing I'm going to do is to cover the cup with my lining. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out a piece of lining that is wide enough to cover this cup. So I'm going to place the right side of the cup on the lining, and then I'm going to pin and I'll sew just the upper part of the cup. So I'm going to join the cup and the lining together, but I'm going to sew just the upper part. I'll repeat the same thing for the other cup. So I'm done sewing and this is what I have. So I'm going to cover the cup up with the lining and I'm going to sew on the outside. I'm going to sew the cup all the way around. I've gone ahead to do that and I'll trim out the excess lining that I have on the cup. I'll repeat the same thing for the other cup. So after doing that, our both cups are ready. So we're going to go ahead and join the main bodies. So we'll start with the front. So for the front, I'm going to keep my lining and work on the main bodies. So I've gone ahead to use my Ankara fabric to cut out a bias that I'll be using to create my boning casing. So the wideness of the fabric is 1.5 inch. My boning, the wideness of my boning is 1/2 inch. So I folded in 1/4 inch on both sides. So I'm going to place them on my main bodies like this. I'll place on the center, so you can do as many boning casing as you want, but for the front I'm just going to create 3 channels for my boning. So I'm going to sew 2 straight stitches on this fabric, just like this. So like I said, the wideness of the fabric is 1.5 inch. I folded in 1/4 inch. So after sewing, what I'm going to have is 1/2 inch, which is the wideness of my boning. So I've gone ahead to sew. I'm going to trim out the excess fabric that I have. I'll bring in my lining piece and I'm going to place the lining on the main fabric, right sides facing each other. I'll arrange everything in place and making sure that it's sitting perfectly, and then I'll go ahead and bring in my yoke. So like I said before, I cut out 4 pieces for the yoke, 2 pieces for the main bodice, and 2 pieces for the lining. So I'm going to place them right sides facing each other, and I'm going to sew just the neckline area of the yoke. After sewing, I'll go ahead and turn inside out. And for the main bodice, I'm going to sew just this center front. I'm just going to close it up. I've gone ahead to do that, and this is what I have. So I'm going to open it up like this, and I'll bring in my yoke. So I've gone ahead to sew only the neckline area of my yoke. So what I'm going to do is to open my front piece, and I'm going to place my yoke on the front piece. So before I do that, remember we are going to sew the cup on the front piece. So I'm going to go inward like this by 1 inch. So the remaining space is where we are going to sew our cup to. I don't know if you understand. So I'm going to place my yoke on it, and I'm placing my yoke on the main bodice, and I'm going to pin it down. I'll repeat the same thing for the other side. I'll go out by 1 inch so that we'll use that space to join our cup to the cup area, and then I'm going to place my yoke. After doing that, I'm going to cover it up with my lining piece. I'll pin all the way around, and then I'll go ahead and sew the yoke in place. I've sewn the yoke in place. I went ahead to turn it inside out, and this is what I have. So this is what it looks like on the outside. I also went ahead to just sew the cup area in order to hold it in place. I did that on the outside. So the next thing I'll do is to sew the cup to the main bodice. Before I do that, remember we left 1/2 inch on the cup area as our stitching allowance. So I'm going to go ahead and use my chalk to mark out the 1/2 inch, so that by the time I'm done sewing, everything is going to be accurate. I'll do that for the other cup opening, and then I'll pin my cup on that particular line all the way around. So let's head over to the sewing machine, and I'll show you guys how to sew your cup in place. So guys, after sewing the cup in place, this is what it looks like. So the next thing I'm going to do is to fix my boning. So I'm going to measure the channel for the boning that I have, and I'm going to make sure that the boning is 1/2 inch shorter than the channel. Remember, we are going to join this half length to the full length, so it should be 1/2 inch or 1 inch shorter than the boning casing. I've gone ahead to cut out my boning, and I also went ahead to conceal the edges so that it will not be poking me when I wear the dress. So I'm going to pass the boning through the channel. So make sure the channel you created is wide enough for your boning to pass through. So I've gone ahead to do that. The next thing I'll do is to go ahead and give it a good press so that everything lays flat, because it's standing right now. So for the back piece, guys, I'm going to go ahead and open up my yoke. Like I said before, I have 4 pieces for the yoke, so I'm going to place them right sides facing each other, and then I'll go ahead and sew the opening on the back of the yoke. I'll sew the neckline, and then I'll go ahead and turn it inside out. So I'm not sewing the armhole or the base of the yoke. So for the back, I'm going to create loops because I said earlier that I'll be adding loops to this dress, so that means I'm not going to be using a zipper. I've also gone ahead to cut out a modesty panel for the back of this dress, so I have a whole tutorial dedicated to how to cut and sew a modesty panel. I'm going to leave the link in the comment section. So I also went ahead to cut out my loops. What I'm going to do is to go down by half an inch from the upper part of this back piece. So this half an inch that I'm leaving is what I'm going to use to join the lining to the main fabric. From that point, I'm going to start marking 1 inch, which is the distance from one loop to the other one. I'll place my tape, I'll mark 1 inch. I'll keep doing that till I get to the end, and on the base also I'll make sure I leave half an inch, which I'm going to use to join the skirt part of this dress to the half length. So I've gone ahead to do that. Let's head over to the sewing machine to sew our loop. So for the loop, I cut out 2 inches. My loop is 2 inches long, so I'm going to place the loop on the mark that I made. I'll go ahead and sew. I'll keep placing each loop on the marks, and I'll go ahead and sew on a straight line till I get to the end. So guys, after sewing my loops in place, I decided to add another boning casing to the loop area so that the that area is going to stand firm after lacing my loop. So I used the remaining bias earlier to create another boning casing for the two sides the back piece. So guys, after sewing my loop in place, this is what I have. I'll go ahead and repeat the same thing for the other side of the back. I've also gone ahead to sew my yoke in place, and I turned it inside out. I went ahead to also add a loop to the tip of the yoke so that I'll be able to hook it to my button. So after doing that, guys, this is what I have. The next thing I'm going to do is to bring in my modesty panel and my lining piece. So I'm going to pin my modesty panel half inch away from the base and half inch away from the upper part. So that means I'm going to leave space to join my lining piece to the main fabric, both on the base and on the upper part. So in case you don't know how to do this, I have a full tutorial on how to cut and sew your modesty panel. I'm going to leave the link in the comment section. So I'm going to bring my yoke and I'll place it on the main bodice like this, right sides facing each other. I'll repeat the same thing for the other side. I'll pin my yoke in place, and then I'll go ahead and bring in my lining piece to cover everything up. After covering it, I'll go ahead and pin all the way around. I'll place my yoke under the modesty panel, as you can see, and then I'll use my lining piece to cover it up. So I'm going to sew on a straight line. The only place I'm not going to sew is the base. After doing that, I went ahead to sew and I turned it inside out, and this is what we have for the part that has the modesty panel, and this is the other side of the back. Don't worry about the modesty panel that is popping out. It's going to be inside anyway, so it's not going to show. So I also went ahead to cut out a lace that I'll be using to lace my loop. The length of this lace is 45 inches. I'm going to go ahead and lace the loop. So guys, like I said earlier, I went ahead to create another boning casing immediately after the loop line, as you guys can see. Sorry I did not show that on camera. I decided to do it last minute, so I could not show it on camera. So I'm going to insert my boning inside the boning casing. So I already went ahead to cut out my boning, which is half an inch shorter than the length of this boning casing. I'm going to go ahead and conceal the edges of the bone, and then I'm going to insert the bone to the two boning casing that we have on the back piece. So guys, after inserting the boning casing, this is what I have. I'm going to go ahead and give it a good press so that everything lays flat. And for the front, I'm going to use my tailor's arm to iron the cup area and also the main body so that everything lays flat. So I have a tutorial on how to make your tailor's arm, which is very good in ironing your corset and bustier. So I'm going to leave the link of that tutorial in the comment section. So after ironing, guys, this is what I have. I'm going to place the back on the front, and then I'm going to join the shoulder area. After joining the shoulder area, I'll also go ahead and use the stitching allowance that I left. Remember, I added 2 inches as my stitching allowance. I'm going to use that 2 inches to join the side, and I'll also go ahead and join the shoulders together. So guys, after joining the shoulders and the side, I went ahead to turn it inside out, and this is what I have. So the next thing I'm going to do is to cut out the skirt part of this dress. So I'm going to open the side up a bit. So for the skirt part of this dress, you'll be needing at least 3 yards of fabric in order for you to get that effect that you can see on the thumbnail. And you also be needing hard net, the net that is used to sew a ball gown, so that it will have that standing effect. I didn't have enough fabric, so I managed 2 yards. So I'll be gathering 1 yard to the front part of the dress and another 1 yard to the back part of the dress. Mine did not come out full because I did not have enough fabric, and I didn't even use hard net for it. So if you have the hard net and enough fabric, you are going to gather it and it's going to come out really fine. The last thing you do is to hem the base of your dress. So the length of my dress is 40 inches, half length 14 inches, and the skirt part is 24 inches. So yeah guys, that brings us to the end of this tutorial. I hope it was helpful. Please don't forget to like this video, leave your comments in the comment section. I'll see you guys in the next one.